Good Up is our space to talk about those experiences in life we didn't know we all had in common. We're the after-work happy hour conversation with your best friend.
You good up bad, like, hello.
The place where you bring up the hard parts of life, the ones that made you laugh, and the things that made you who you are. Because who said becoming good up wasn't a little bit uncomfortable? Stay tuned for more information about this week's episode.
The following is a paid advertisement by Empath Psychological Services. This episode of the Good Up Pod is sponsored by Empath Psychological Services, locally owned, millennial-operated therapy for Virgin Islanders by Virgin Islanders. Here at the Good Up Pod, we're all about shedding light on life experiences that have contributed to who we are and learning to navigate them to find a feeling that's, well, good up.
For some of us, that journey includes therapy. Empath Psychological Services operates with the belief that life's challenges are not all of who we are.
They aim to create a non-judgmental environment to help their clients harness their own power and to find their path to mental well-being. Good Up and Empath Psychological Services share a passion for helping others navigate their own healing their way.
If you're interested in teletherapy services in the U.S. Virgin Islands or the state of Texas, check out the link in the description box for more information on how you can book a session with Empath Psychological Services. Hey girl.
Hey girl.
I'm so excited. Ayo and Deidre look fucking good, okay? The patrons are getting a full view of Deidre and her red in the slick back hair. Deidre look like she's trying to go text somebody, man. And
that's the time I'm on, to be honest. Like I just got back from the gym, okay? I'm not playing.
I've been seeing you in the gym too. I'm like, you know what? I really need to get my shit together. Like, here.
I'm not playing with nobody. Okay, It's giving.
It's fire. I support
it's
it.
Giving. Thank you.
Well, Deidre and her fucking bag is all I trying to see.
I'm in my bag.
I was listening to Renaissance last night. Ain't to say I have stopped listening to Renaissance since the beginning of the season when the fucking album dropped. But ain't like she giving we visuals, but we gonna talk about Beyonce because then we gonna really get off topic.
Yo, I about to start making my own visuals at this point because
I was like, Beyonce,
get at me, girl. Because what?
I know that we're overusing this phrase on social media right now, but Beyonce, be fucking for real, please. Like, can we get some visuals?
You know what though? Because we're talking a lot of shit right now, and then when Beyonce does give us the visuals, we are going to probably
when she dropped them fuck for Thanksgiving, I'll be like, be grateful, bitch.
We will be squirming on the floor, losing our shit when Beyonce dropped the vision.
So welcome back to another episode. We had a little break. We had a little respite in between episodes because Deidre and I have been walking our asses off this season and have been so far ahead that we were able to take like a 2-3 week break.
Yeah, it was.
We recorded since October. Yeah, I went on vacation and shit. I went to Texas through
you definitely went out of town.
Damn near get pregnant. Life is lifing, okay?
You thought she was gonna slip that in there?
All I'm saying is the last time I had my period, I recorded on this podcast. So if you hear me talk about my period
that's right, because we was definitely talking about your period. Yo, if the Empress card, okay.
All I'm saying is if I hear like 2 or 3 more episodes and I don't bring up my period again, okay.
Good up zygote.
It was homecoming. Not the good up zygote. Deidre. Anyway, what this episode is really about 8 minutes in is gratitude, because we're recording this during Thanksgiving week, and although Thanksgiving, the original version of it is basically a celebration of murder and genocide, I think that people have found a way to kind of reclaim Thanksgiving and make it a lot about gratitude. And by people, I mean Black people and other people of color. I mean talking about white people today. If you listen to this podcast and you white, this is not your week.
Unless you're self-aware and you understand that your ancestors really ain't shit, then you could come to the function.
Yeah. Come to the function, but don't stay. Just pass by.
Yeah.
And
just
don't bring a plate. Just bring cups and soda.
Yeah.
So this episode is about gratitude. A couple of seasons ago, maybe last season, we did an episode on toxic positivity and about people who are so optimistic to the point where they're fuck annoying, basically. Who
And genuinely toxic. Like it's
Yeah.
toxic to be that optimistic.
we basically were talking about people who like positive to the point where like your friend's struggling and you just like, just pray about it, you'll be okay. Those type of people. But today we flipping the script. We are going to be talking not just about gratitude and how important gratitude is for our mental health, but also about people who can be too negative, including yours truly sometimes.
Sometimes,
So
not all
yeah,
the time.
so we'll be talking all about that. So if you're listening to the episode, stay tuned, bitch. And before I start, you know what? Now that you're listening to this podcast, go ahead and hit the pause button. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts if you haven't done that already, because we love reviews. Reviews make the world go around. Go on social media and tweet hashtag Good Up Tuesday and tell the people that you're currently listening to our episode at Good Up, okay? And tag
Yes.
us at Good Up Pod on
Yeah.
our social media, okay? I
Thank
don't always do
you.
it at the end, but I need to start doing it at the beginning because I don't listen. So... So anyway, some fun facts about gratitude, because I was looking up that shit before we.
I love that you don't do that because you know I'm probably never gonna do that. I probably will, but
I try to do it so that people know, like, we're not just sharing our opinions and things, like we're
Facts,
talking
yeah.
about a concept or idea, right?
Absolutely.
So some fun facts about gratitude. Research shows that practicing gratitude has mental health benefits, which I said earlier. Gratitude emphasizes a focus on the present versus the past or on the future. And our bodies actually respond to the dopamine release that comes with gratitude. So when you share gratitude towards a person or when someone does something for you and you're grateful for it, you actually experience a dopamine release, right? Which essentially is the hormone in your body that makes you feel good. So we are encouraged to practice gratitude even without someone doing something for us, like just practicing gratitude outside of those moments, because it trains your body like to basically release dopamine and like feel that feeling of gratitude, which is why it's good for us. So with that, I'm gonna toss the mic to Deidre with a question, which is, how do you practice gratitude in your current life, and do you feel like you practice gratitude enough?
You know what? I'm about to be annoying because I definitely practice hella gratitude, right?
That's not annoying. That's good.
I mean, it's very good. But for somebody who probably feels like they aren't great, like don't do that enough, it might be like, of course she does, you know?
Well,
in
do
any
it more,
case,
bitch. Don't
do
be
it more,
vexed for Deidre.
because
That's on you.
you know what? Yes, because me personally, the life I'm living, and this is something that I started maybe 2.5 years ago, where I just kind of started reflecting on everything that I currently have. And I'm like, yo, everything that's currently existing in my life, there was a time I used to want this in my life. So especially when I find myself striving for more and feeling like I should be doing more, I don't gotta check myself and say, yo, there was a time you wasn't even doing this. There was a time that this is what you longed for. There was a time that what's happening right now is what you wanted. So that's like my personal gratitude, right? I say thank you for everything. Like me and Daima were just cracking joke about this on the phone, because I could just take a sip of water and be like, thank you, God. Like, it's just like, so annoying, right?
My grandmother used to do that. Fuck.
I don't
My
know.
grandmother used to eat her food, right? As soon as she sit on her leg, she would throw herself, like, not throw herself back, but you know how old woman does sit. She just sit down and be like, thank you, God. I used to be like, oh my God.
I'm very much that person, right? Even like when I leave like my like HIIT class and my boxing class and stuff, I thank the coach before I leave. I'm like, thank you, coach. Like that was because I'm grateful for every little thing. With my family, me and Dylan have this thing we say to each other. I always say, I'm so glad I get to be your mom. He smiles and hugs me tight, and he says, I'm so glad I get to be your son. So like I'm really happy for everything I have going on. Because and it's easy to do that because there was a time where my life fucking sucked. There was a time where trigger warning. There was a time where I didn't want to be alive. And I vividly remember, I could talk about this comfortably now because I've overcome it. I vividly remember the night that I wanted to take my life. Dylan was a baby. I was working a full-time job. I was still in school and my relationship was fucking garbage. And I was on my way home and it was dark. It was nighttime. Going home used to depress me. Now I love coming home, but at the time going home, the only thing to look forward to was that sweet baby. Other than that, I hated going home. I'm literally looking around and I'm like, yo, I could just end this shit right now. I came so close to doing it. I even remember taking off my seatbelt And then I thought about my Dylan and I was like, but who the fuck don't love that baby like me? And I put my fuck back on and I cried my eyes out and I was like, whatever's making me feel this, I have to get this fuck out my life. And between then and now, my life has changed significantly, and I fucking love my life. Bitch, I'm grateful as fuck. Like,
let me just say how grateful I am that you're here. Like how you tell Dylan, like, I'm glad I get to be your sister and your co-host. Like, I'm glad you're here.
Your sister. I'm glad you're here.
Because I would have had to beat that man ass. And first of all, I still want to beat that man ass, but have to happen sooner, you know?
Right. And it wasn't even just like him, because I recognize now that I definitely struggled with, I thought I struggled with just postpartum anxiety, but I obviously also struggled with postpartum depression. But I get to, and this is part of why I'm so invested in making sure Dylan has a great life, because I don't like being one of those parents who's like, oh, my child changed my life, because I feel like that's a heavy burden to place on a child. But the reality is Dylan has a lot to do with why I'm still alive. And because of that, I'm committed to living not just for him, but for me. And I'm committed to making sure that he has such a good life that when he's grown, he don't have to feel those things that I felt. He doesn't have to have somebody else be the reason for his living. You know what I mean? Because the reality is yeah, his dad was abusive toward me, but I chose him because of the abuse I endured as a child, because abuse was normal to me. Because if I had a healthy upbringing, I would have never seeked for that man. You see what I'm saying? So now I'm confident that Dylan's going to have the kind of upbringing to where he has the discernment to make sure that, one, he's a good partner, but two, he chooses a partner who's not going to mistreat him. Yeah. So again, I'm grateful as fuck, honey. I'm grateful as fuck.
I love to see it. Honestly, listen, I don't want to say that I don't practice enough gratitude, because I definitely have a lot of moments where I feel grateful, right? And ditto to everything you said, like looking at the life I have now, the house I live in, like my husband, like just all of this stuff. I don't look at it sometimes and be like, wow, like I'm so grateful for this. But I think that sometimes my negativity tends to eclipse my gratitude. I think that I don't practice gratitude enough, but I'm definitely grateful for the life that I have, and like for all the things. Like even before we start recording, we were talking about season 8, right? And how like there were things that I was so happy with, and then things that I was like, oh, this ain't going the way I want it, and I was mad. And you were like, man, I think the podcast doing great. And instantly I was like, you negative bitch, look at Deidre. Deidre's so happy about this. Fuck, Deidre just happy to be here.
I am. No, dead ass. I'm really happy to be here. I'm happy to record this show. I love when we get those messages from people who talk about like how the episode impacted them. And hey, I thought you reminded me of one of the listeners who started going to therapy because she listens to the show. Like those things mean so much to me. And for me, the way I see it, it's like a little ripple effect, right? Imagine the podcast being like a little pebble and it like lands in the water. And to us, it seems like it hasn't gone far, but it's like that ripple effect, and it's just growing and growing and growing. And I'm happy to be here.
Let me read the message again, because that shit just, first of all, it was a he, which is even
it was a he. My bad. I'm sorry.
Which is even more like heartwarming for me.
A man chose to go to therapy.
Yeah. Y'all know that men tend to hesitate a bit more when it comes to getting care for their mental health and stuff like that. So the message said, and you know who you are if you listen to the podcast, thank you for this. It said, I just want to thank you for your podcast and the joy it brings me to listen. I grew up motivated by the pursuit of not being punished and never received praise for anything I did right now. Now in therapy, I actively added the saying, who gonna beat my ass, to my affirmation, and I truly thank you both. Keep going. Like, Papa, we so proud of you. Like,
thank you for sharing that. Oh, things like that fuel me. Things like that fuel me.
So that's gratitude, right? Like that feeling we get reading that message, that's gratitude for the platform that we have, for the podcast that we have.
Yes.
The thing I think that this episode is going to emphasize is that like you should be trying to practice that level of gratitude, even if we stop getting DMs like that, right? We should still ideally be grateful for the platform that we have, for what we're able to do on this show, because it's helped us and it's changed our lives individually. Facts. Even if it don't change nobody else's, but obviously
it's changing ours. Because you know what, even if we stop getting messages like that, the fact that we're still showing up for this show, is benefiting us, right?
Yeah.
Because you and I both struggle with seeing things to the finish line. And this is a very consistent thing that we're doing. We've been doing it for so long, and we're going to do it for even longer, you know? So even that's something to be grateful for too when it comes to our podcast.
I'm very grateful. And we're going to talk more about like gratitude as it relates to the show and stuff like that in the season finale. In my personal life, I've experienced a lot of loss in the past couple of weeks. Like people have randomly passed away. And I've been thinking a lot about death. And I think where my gratitude tends to come in is just like, wow, I'm grateful that I still here. Like I'm grateful that I'm still here right now and able to do these things. And like whatever time I have, whatever God or the universe have planned, shout out to Facebook. I'm
beefing with the fact that we can we talk about
listen,
I swear.
I asked a question and the people was like, this is demonic. Relax. So anyway, before I deviated from the topic, so reflecting on just like how life is fragile and unpredictable and how anything could happen has made me more grateful because, like we said, the fact that we are still here creating this podcast and like with each other and spending time with each other, like that is gratitude. I saw a friend during homecoming who passed away 2 weeks after. Saw her, hugged her, was like so happy to see she because I hadn't seen she in years, and she passed away within 2 weeks. It's made me much more grateful for what I was like, the fact that I was able to see the people that I saw. As tired as I was, as many people, I was like, I tired of hugging people, Jesus Christ. But now looking back, I'm like, wow,
you're glad you got
to do that, you know? Yeah, so that's my latest practice of gratitude is just like, fuck, I happy to be here. And again, like you, same, have struggled with suicidal thoughts and ideations. Like, hey, I was not almost here past 2018 for real. And I genuinely, looking back, cannot tell you what it was that kept me here, but I'm really fucking glad that I didn't do that.
Ancestors said, all right, here we go. Them ancestors rolled up their sleeves, honey. They said, all right, we got work to do, honey.
Listen, okay?
My God. I'm glad you're here. Glad to be here. I'm glad I get to be your sister.
I'm glad I get to be your sister too. We're so cute. Anyway.
I know.
So my next question is, now that we've talked about gratitude, where does the negativity, is there space for us to be negative sometimes? Should we be allowed, or should we allow ourselves to have moments?
The way I see it, right? I always give this analogy. Let me see if I have something that's a good for my patrons. Shout out to y'all, right? Let's say this is a wheel.
See the little scrunchy.
You see the little scrunchy, right? Let's say this is the top of the wheel, right? Life is like a wheel and it's always turning. Sometimes that fuck gonna be to the bottom, right? And sometimes they're gonna be to the top. When that fuck is to the bottom, just go with it. Does that make sense? Like sometimes shit just fucking sucks. And what the fuck are we gonna do? Gratitude our way out of the fact that something sucks right now? No, we're gonna say, yo, this shit fucking sucks. And we're gonna just acknowledge that it sucks. We're gonna get to the bottom of why something that sucks so much is happening. And then we're gonna just kind of roll with it. And before we know it, the wheel gonna be back to the top. Right? And then we're going to be able to be grateful for getting out of that shitty situation or whatever the case may be. But some things genuinely just suck. Right? And we can't just pretend like it don't. Because again, that teeters back into that delusion, which is where toxic positivity comes from. That's just the way I see it.
I definitely agree. I think that every now and then I need a moment to bitch. I don't want to see the bright side. I don't want to see the silver lining. I want to talk my shit and I want to bitch. I want to talk about how much this thing sucks. I want to talk about the fact that my feelings are hurt. I want to talk about how this person is a dirty whore and I don't like them right now. And maybe tomorrow I might come back and say, you know what, maybe she's not a whore. Maybe she was just being a whore that day. But right now, I want to call her a whore. And you need to let me do that.
You know what? You're right. And remember last season, it was last season, I spent the whole season dragging my ex, right?
And the reason I never tell you, DJ, you need to get over that is because you needed that season to call here a bitch.
To call here what has gone, right? Like, but now I can appreciate the times that we spent together. I just made a post on Facebook the other day. I shared a picture because it came up on my Facebook memories. A beautiful picture that he took of me. And when the picture came up on my feed, I was happy to see it. I wasn't like bummed because like my ex who really played my face, like is who took the picture. I was so glad to have that picture. I was like, wow, one thing about Mother's Gun, he used to take some nice pictures of me.
Yeah.
Like, and I have, when I tell you, I have some gorgeous pictures of myself thanks to him because I don't photograph myself enough. I'm not, I know I'm
He took the
photogenic.
picture of you like in the botanical garden, right?
Yes, in
That's
that
my
green
favorite
dress.
picture of you.
He took that picture, and it's funny because for me, first of all, y'all know I love flowers, and that was our first date too. We went to the botanical garden, and we had such a good time. And I was so focused on the flowers, so I'll never forget that moment. We were walking, my dress was gorgeous, I looked the fuck good, and I was just focused on the flowers. And he was like, "Mama, stop!" And I stopped, and I turned around, and I saw the camera up, and I started laughing. I'm like, "Dude, you always have that fucking camera."
But it
and
was so cute.
So
and you know what I love about that is that the analogy you just made about like life being a wheel, right? You went through, I remember you being on this podcast and being like giddy when y'all first started dating and being happy for that happy moment, you know, or happiness that he brought you in those moments.
Yes.
And then I remember it turning into like, okay, y'all were going through some shit, the relationship got negative, y'all broke up, and you having to process those emotions of breaking up.
Yes.
And in those moments, you weren't talking about our happiness. You were like, fuck yeah, everything he stands for, I'll kick his kneecaps off. And I supported it. And then now you're at this more balance where you could acknowledge there was happiness and there was some bullshit and okay, but there's gratitude there, right?
There's so much gratitude there. Yeah.
I think that's what gratitude is. It's like acknowledging like, okay, life gone life, but there's some really good parts of life and I fuck with it. Like
exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
So, I support it, but I think that we should be allowed to have those negative moments. Like
absolutely.
Sometimes people will go on social media and complain, and then somebody else will be like, "Oh, I hate how people just go on social media to complain." But sometimes people need to vent. Like you need to. Now, if somebody is on, so this happens on my Twitter a lot. If I notice that everything somebody posts every day, all the time, is just some negative "woe was me, life is hard" shit, I'll mute them. I won't unfollow them. I won't tell them to be positive. I will mute them and be like, I gonna come back when you're in a better place because
exactly. And see and that's what we should be doing. Rather than trying to get people to do what will make us comfortable, we have to take responsibility for our own comfort. So yeah, okay, Susie May is always on this motherfucker upset. Like every time she pops up on my feed, she venting about something. She miserable, she unhappy. Rather than telling Susie May, like, girl, you are too negative, honey. Like, hey, as I said, just mute them.
I think the boundary I draw is where someone tries to bring that negativity to me, like deliver it to me.
For sure.
I cannot stand that fuck, which is, people call them like negative Nancy's, right? Like, I cannot stand when in any moment you're talking about your life, you're talking about something, you giving your friend a life update, someone has to try to insert negativity into the moment in whatever
that's
way they
weird.
can.
That's so weird.
Like when you say, I think I want to start a business, and somebody said, that fucking be expensive. Who gives a
who asked you? You think you don't think she considered the expenses? You think she just out here thinking businesses just appear?
Yeah. Or like when you say, oh, I want to travel to this place, and you be like, oh, I hear that place got a lot of crime.
Okay. Yeah, that's so weird to me. Yo, people will really be doing that.
Okay.
You know what kills me?
I live in Arizona. Somebody probably getting mugged down the street while I recording this podcast. What the fuck crime got to do with me? Like,
you know what gets me is when somebody is in the middle of doing something that they do that works for them, right? And then somebody else just inserts the fact that they just can't do that. I could never do X, Y, Z. Well, girl, I don't remember asking you. Or I just don't have the time to do X, Y, Z. Well, I don't remember asking
or
you.
Even, like, I'll use this as an example because I feel like I'm a good example here. When people come around me and talk about just the love they have for their kids and how much they love children, right? I would be such a bitch to in that moment be like, I could never have kids. I don't know how you to do that. Fuck.
Oh, I see what you say.
Even though I strongly feel like I could never have kids. I don't know how I would do that. Fuck. That's not like, for me. Yeah. Why would I say that in a moment where somebody's like, I love my child?
You know what? The equivalent what I would the equivalent of that, and I feel like I've had to teach myself not to do that. Those women who over-identify with being a wife.
Oh yeah,
girl.
I don't do the same fuck too. I don't just be like, girls.
I don't find myself.
What we doing?
Okay. So rather than just shaming them, right, for completely like never creating an identity, cultivating one, or, you know, or rather losing their identity in like marriage or being such and such's wife, I just move on because I know that shit ain't for me.
Those people who constantly bring negativity in the situation. Have you ever had a negative Nancy in your life, like as a friend?
Yeah.
Have you ever had a friend who would just I hate
Girl, I
her
got
ass, bitch?
relatives that's negative Nancy's. I've had friends that's negative Nancy's. Um, I've found that the people in my life who have gotten better and overcome being negative Nancy's, it was not because I pointed out like, girl, you a negative Nancy, you need to do better. It was because I remained grounded in what I believed in and was like, okay, I understand that you fearful of XYZ, but I'm not, right? And then they would stop and be like, well, God, kind of like earlier where you were like stressing about the numbers. And I was like, I think we're doing great. And then you were like, fuck, we are.
Yeah, like, okay,
I
let me chill.
yeah. And I don't do that to like rebut people or to get them to change their mind. I just allow people to feel how they feel. Cause hey, if you only see things in that light, that's cool, right? But light and dark exist together. And so while your focus is where things are going wrong and the fact that the glass is half empty, my focus gonna always be on the fact that the glass is half full. And then before you know it, you're gonna be like, well, goddamn, you're right, and we're gonna be sharing this glass together, you know. But yeah, I've had negative Nancy's in my life.
I think it was so important that you touched on fear and how sometimes people come off as negative because of their fears, because I feel like, and I don't try not to bring this woman up on the podcast, I feel like my mother sometimes could be a negative Nancy, right?
I knew you was gonna bring that lady into it. Miss Maria, this ain't got nothing to do with me. Okay, I don't want no problems, Miss Maria.
No, but no, but just being real. Sometimes my mother could be a negative Nancy, right? My mother tends to, and not necessarily that she's trying to bring up the negative. My mother tends to bring up the worst possible outcome to everything, right?
Yeah.
And the only reason I picked this up is because when I started dating my now husband and we were living together, and he says this all the time, you always looking for the worst possible outcome. He says it to me, right? When he said that to me, I realized that something my mother and I have in common is that we have anxiety. We struggle with anxiety. So because my mother tends to be anxious, she don't vocalize her anxiety, right? So sometimes I remember one time the Bluetooth in my car were whiling, and sometimes the phone no sync with it. So I'll just turn off the car and turn it back on so that the radio could like restart and sync, right? This is important background, I promise. So we were at a red light. And my mother would visit to me. She was in the back seat. My husband was in the passenger. And my Bluetooth was tripping. So at the red light, I turn off the car and I turn it back on. She said, why did you do that? And I said, because I tried to reset the radio. She was like, don't do that in traffic because you never know, the car may not start again and then you're going to be stuck in traffic. And I said, and they're going to just have to drive around me, mommy. I don't understand why we have this conversation. So she pissed me off so bad because we're like, what do you mean the car might not start again? Why would you say that? So she don't do that. Sometimes she'll be like, don't do that because this gonna happen. And I'll be like, mommy, really?
The likelihood of that happening is not as high. Now, because my mom is a lot like that.
What are we going to do?
Yeah. So my mom
we
is a lot like that. I find, okay, just to not to be like that person who brings it, because, you know, I can't stand that generational divide, but it's real, right?
It's a generational
It's definitely a generational thing. Gen X.
Turn off the light inside the car because we're going to get pulled over. That was a fucking lie.
They definitely... They tend to go for those worst case scenarios, right? But look at what they come, especially the Gen Xers and boomers of color, right? Look at what they had to face in the world, right? A lot of them were and still are in survival mode. Okay. A lot of them didn't get to exist freely. They were living in fear for many reasons. So it's kind of hard for them to get out of it, right? So when it, honestly, my tolerance for whether or not somebody's a negative Nancy, I tend to base it on their age group. If it's an older person, I just accept that this person only knows how to live in fear because they've been attacked from many angles, right? If it's somebody in our age group, I have less patience and tolerance for it because it's like, girl, you got a lot of time to heal that. You got a lot of time to unlearn that because that was poured into us when we were growing up. Everything they knew was poured into us. I had a period of being that way. I had a period of being highly anxious and always basing my decisions around the worst possible outcome. My mom used to say this all the time, and it's something her mom used to say, expect the worst and hope for the best.
Mm.
I grew up hearing those words. And so
Yeah.
that's how I entered the world. In my young adult years, that's how I navigated. And I had to overcome that and recognize, like, okay, Deidre, the worst possible outcome is not very likely. So rather than expecting the worst and hope for the best, make sure you have the tools to navigate out of the worst, but always be expecting the best. Like, I just always expect the best. I always strive for the best. And if by chance it doesn't go the way I want, then I have the tools to come out of the bad outcome. And I also have the coping mechanisms to be okay with whatever outcome comes my way.
Yeah, I'm still working on it because it's so funny how like I could recognize it so easily in my mother, but I don't do the same shit, and then my husband will call me out and I don't get vexed. I'll be like, shut up. But
that's the importance of relationships, though. All types, because the people in our lives are mirrors, and they don't
call me on my shit. He don't definitely call me on my shit, but you know, he'll say like, you know, you always looking for the worst possible outcome. I had a conversation with a friend about this because one time we were planning on a trip last year to this Salt River. Ironically, Diamond come on the trip with us. And it was tubing, right? You were tubing down this big ass Salt River. It's really just you on your own. A bus to drop you off, you get your fucking tube, you go down the river, the bus to pick you up to the other side. So in between
no
the two
tour guide
stops,
or nothing? They don't tell you what to do.
You on a fucking tube in the middle of a river. People will do this it's hundreds of people going down the river, you know.
That sounds very Caucasian.
It is very Caucasian, but so leading up to the trip, I did not want to go, right? And this is tied into anxiety. This is also tied into PTSD, which I'm just starting to discover. Because of my PTSD related to a car accident, I have this belief that when I travel, I am going to die. Like if I go on a trip, if we go on a road trip, something bad gonna happen because the accident that I was in was on a trip, right? So there's this, it's this ingrained trauma response, right?
Yeah.
So tying it back to this, we were planning this trip, and my friend, she's my best friend, she was like, I'm so excited, I want to go tubing, please let's go tubing. And everybody else was like, yeah, let me do that fucking. I'm like, I was like, is tubing safe? Like, me want to go fucking. I just had this bad feeling. I was like, I don't want to go. So I looked up everything there was to look up about this river, about tubing. I looked up, you know, what's the likelihood of like accidents? How do people tend to get in accidents on this river? And in my head, I was like, let me look up this so that I know what not to do so that we could be safe, right?
Yeah.
And I remember her being like, dude, just get in the fucking tube and let we go. Like, she was like, let's go. She's very adventurous.
She's not like a Sagittarius.
So after that, mind you, we went on a trip, you know. I had a great ass time. We had a little mishap. Diamond had to jump on a tree real quick. It was a little while. But she was fine. But
you know what I would do if something had fucking happened to Diamond?
That's the thing though. Diamond was actually the one who was like the safest out of all of we because she was thinking quick, so she got. But
shout out to our mom. Our mom raised us to be that way.
Yeah. After the trip, we ended up having a really good time. We were going back home. I think about a couple of days after me and her talk about it, and I was like, I'm sorry that I was like the negative Nancy for this trip. And I was like, but I'm trying to get you to understand what my mindset was. So I basically explained to her, you know, PTSD, all of this stuff. And then I also told her, when people go on trips, because nobody is thinking about the worst possible outcomes, sometimes people tend to get reckless. Like, people tend to think they're invincible and then nothing could happen, right? And in my mind, maybe I go a bit too far on one side, but I feel like there has to be balance. Like, yes, have fun and go with the flow, but also like be fucking careful. Like, don't just assume that everything gonna be okay.
Yes.
So I am always going to be the friend who is concerned over everyone's safety. I'm always going to be the friend who wants everybody to be okay, because somebody in the group needs to be thinking about our fuck. I say this all to say, sometimes the negative Nancy in the group have a point, but sometimes y'all bitches toxic. And you just want to be negative just to be negative because you probably is a hater. So there's a difference, okay? I've also had those friends in my life who, no matter what I do, would have just like, it's alright, like that kind of attitude.
That's just being a hater. Fuck you. You just being a hater. Fuck you.
And that's the shit I cannot fucking stand. Like, there's a difference for me. If your negativity is out of fear or out of like worry, for me, fair. The fuck's still annoying, but fair. But if your negativity is because you just cannot see the happiness in any situation, or you just my ex roommate, right, was actually outwardly a very happy, like positive person. You could hear my belly girl in Ras. Anyway,
I need to eat too.
was just outwardly a very positive, bubbly person, right? But had a problem with the way I did things for everything. Or when people get on Twitter and be like, "Oh, I gotta do this way," can't be me, couldn't be me.
Like, who asked you? Who asked you, Clara? Who? Tell me.
Let me tell you something. I don't tweet this all the time. Please do not ever paint yourself as a couldn't be me ass bitch, because the way life works is it could, in fact, someday possibly be you. So be really careful about the shit you just say when you be like, "Oh, I could never. It could never be me." It could, in fact, be you,
There's
bitch.
only one area of life where I refuse to not be a couldn't be me ass
I
bitch.
couldn't be like a pick me ass, like wife for life, Chad's wife type bitch. That gonna never be me.
Okay.
That gonna never be me. And if it ends up becoming me, please drag me on social media.
No,
and
hey,
be
Isaac,
like,
let me tell y'all.
"Bitch."
If Hey Isaac ever become a pick me Chad's wife ass bitch, y'all gonna see me set up this mic. Y'all gonna see me go live, and y'all gonna see me drag shit.
Yeah.
Okay?
I expect you to do. And don't get me wrong, I am one of those people who will my man and my husband you to death.
Because your husband is that nigga. He
Because
deserves
that's my
it,
man.
right?
Yeah.
But that's not your identity. That's just an aspect of your life. Marriage is an aspect of your life. It's not your existence.
Exactly.
Chad's wife.
And if I ever see me become Chad's wife, what if Chad's wife is a list?
I know, listen, if you become that bitch, then that means Stephen do Obia on you, and me and my ancestors gonna break the curse.
I mean, sometimes that man
He don't be cooking a lot in the house, Hey Isa.
I don't cook. Thanksgiving coming up. You think I planning a menu, bitch? I planning to eat. I don't cook.
Hey, Stephen will be in the house cooking. If Hey Isa ever become a pick me Chad's wife as bitch, then we know Stephen do something to the food.
I don't cook.
However,
this house is spick and fucking span.
Look at y'all having balance. That's what I'm talking about.
So before we wrap up the episode, that is something I wanted to touch on, though, is for people who are looking to practice gratitude, to be better at it, what are some tips that you would give them? Like, how can someone incorporate more gratitude practice into their life? One, stop being a negative ass bitch. Check yourself.
Yeah.
When you find yourself being a hater, clock it. Be like, "Okay, Jay, you being a hater.
You
Relax."
know what I've seen the girlies do on the internet, and it definitely works. I went through that period of doing that, is the gratitude journaling. Start by writing down, maybe every day, write down 3 things that you're grateful for. Until you don't have to write it down no more. Because that's pretty much how I became in this space where gratitude is just a part of my day-to-day. I started by gratitude journaling, and I should have said that earlier in the episode. When I used to struggle with finding things to be grateful for, I used to just journal. So I used to challenge myself, and every day I would get up, whether it's morning time, it doesn't matter. I would literally every day I would write down 3 things I was grateful for. And then eventually it just became a once a week thing, where on like Sunday or one day of the week, I would just journal all the things I was grateful for. And eventually I was able to wean myself off my gratitude journal, because now y'all heard me earlier in like my bliss of gratitude, just going on and on about how grateful I am to fucking breathe.
Life is fucking amazing, bitches. Have you seen it?
Have you seen life? Did you see that fucking fly? Yo, I was walking to the train yesterday, and there were these beautiful daisies that are still in bloom, and it's freezing up here. That's something to be grateful for. Like like I'm in that space now, so I don't need my gratitude journal, but gratitude journaling is a good way to start.
How do I practice gratitude? One, I think gratitude journaling is a great idea. I think the other thing is spending time with yourself, right? And disconnecting, because being so connected to the negativity in the world can tend to make you feel like that's how everything is, right? So literally touching grass is like
big facts.
Go outside and touch fucking
I'll be
grass
hugging trees
every now and then.
But you know what? Hey, I'm glad you said that. I was on the way home from work one day, and this tree that I don't usually stop and say hi to, I literally stopped
the tree.
I started because I used to plant my hands firmly on trees, and then this one day in particular, it just didn't feel like enough, and I just hugged the tree. It felt so good.
But I don't like want my feet to touch the ground, like
yes, put your
and
go
just
in the grass
you're grounding,
barefoot.
right? Yeah.
It's good. And I wanted to piggyback on what you said, because it's one thing when you're online and you're seeing all the negative stuff, but another thing that you do need to detach yourself from is people's positive online posts, because it's very easy to compare yourself to others and to feel like you're not doing enough, because a lot of people only use social media to post their wins. A lot of people only use social media to post about their new car, their new business, their new this, their new that. It's a
highlight reel.
It's a highlight reel. And so if your life is not going in the direction that you want it to go, or you feel like you could be doing more, and all you're seeing is people's wins, that fuck. Because I even have struggled with this in the past. You know what I mean? And then you need to separate yourself from that so you can stop and say, wait a minute. Like I said earlier at the start of the episode, I look around and I think about everything in my life, and I'm like, yo, there was a time this was something I was wishing for. So now, because I created this, bitch, that means I could create even more. And instead of using your energy to be comparing yourself to somebody who's, you know, winning in their own life, then you stop and you say, okay, let me create what winning looks like for me. Because
the reality is people ain't gonna go on Instagram to post when shit rough, when life fucking sucks. Like, what reasons why though? Can I just say how much I love Twitter? Because as much as people say Twitter is like a negative, depressing place, Twitter to me is so balanced, because like people will come on and tweet their wins, but then people will also come on and be like, yo, my job fucking sucks. Like, I hate this shit. Like,
yeah, it's more balanced there for sure.
It's a little more balanced. Don't get me wrong though, Twitter is the other day this post went viral because this woman said, me and my husband woke up this morning, we made ourselves some coffee and we sat in our garden and talked, and she's like, I love him so much and I'm so happy. And people were literally responding like, oh, that's privilege and da 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 da, and people was like, are y'all fucking like, go touch grass? Like, what is
people just like what? That's
dude
crazy.
She was expressing gratitude and people were like, shut up, bitch.
Shut up, you fucking bitch. Like, most people have to be on the train that early to get
right. It was basically on some like, I can't do that, so fuck you. And I was like, dude, why can't you just be like, damn, that's sweet, like,
that's
I'm
lit.
so happy
Enjoy
for you.
that instead. And that's the negative Nancy's, right?
Yeah.
Because there's people who are like, damn, shout out to that. How do I create that for myself? As opposed to being like, let me rip you down from
coffee.
that.
I want a garden. Like, go plant one there, maybe if you went outside and you dug in the dirt a little bit, you would be able to relax.
But that goes back to my point. Like, the time you spending on the internet dragging somebody for living their life and enjoying their life, you could spend going outside.
Yeah, that'll happen to me. I ain't gonna lie, that'll happen to me a lot with a podcast. I don't find myself being a hater because I see other platforms or other content, sometimes even from home, who their content quality is like better, or like they seem to be doing better or getting a lot of love, and I don't just, you know, again, white woman tearing on
your Arthur Fist.
It'll just the Arthur Fist. I don't be vexed. Yesterday it happened to me where I was just like, fuck, like, why can't get up, like, oh. And then I went to go get food, which was probably my problem.
You probably needed to eat.
I come back home, and you know that Paul Rudd, it's a little Paul Rudd video where he'll be like, who would have thought? Look at us. Like, I don't be looking in the mirror like, you good? Because you were tripping 10 minutes ago. Are you fine? It's just, sometimes you need to just disconnect and stop the comparisons, because putting yourself in that cycle of just like constant internet, constant comparisons, constant, woe was me, I wish I had this, it does not allow you to see what you do have, right?
Yes.
It does not allow you to do what we're doing now, which is sitting, creating this podcast. This is the fun part. This is the part that I'm supposed to be grateful for, because I love it, because this fuck will make my day, and then I could go about the rest of my day. But instead, I'll be getting caught up in what? Stats, internet, social media, videos not doing good. Like, please relax. It's fine.
Everything's fine.
So, anyway, I say this all to say, when you bitches eat your talkie or whatever it is you're eating this weekend, practice some fucking gratitude.
Yes, honey. Yes.
All right.
On that note,
you guys know where to find us. Next episode is our season fucking finale. Season 8 done. It done.
What the fuck? Look at, like, I feel like the season just started, but also like was long.
Yeah, girl, we've been recording since August. It is November.
Okay.
That
could
fuck
see
was
that.
long.
That was long, especially because I keep forgetting we do 2 episodes a day when we record. So yeah,
But
this a long season for true.
It's been such a good season either way. We're going to reflect on that in our season finale. And I think we are also planning to go live because our season finale comes out the week that Good Up turns what, bitch? 3. We got it 3. We're big toddlers now. But either way, we're so grateful for you guys this Thanksgiving or whatever it is you're celebrating. I definitely want to take time to share that. If you listen to this podcast, share it on social media. If you are a patron, shout out to you. Or if you're just in our VIP group because you've been a guest of the show, like, we love Allah your body. You make the world go round. You keep the lights on in this bitch.
You certainly do. Let me tell y'all how much y'all keep the lights on, right? Because me and Hayes, we don't touch our Patreon money. Okay, we don't touch it.
We don't. That fuck is our savings account.
It's literally a savings account to invest in the show. Well, I was trying to withdraw some money from my personal Patreon for the work that I do. I'm Patreon holding my fuck hostage because of something with tax forms, right? And I was like, hey, Isa, please send me some Good Up money so I could.
I was like, bet, slide over.
I was like, whenever Patreon release my funds, I'm going to send it back. But thank y'all for that. Thank y'all for that.
See? You keep the host going. Okay.
You literally. So yeah, literally.
Thank you all for everything that you do. We appreciate you. And yeah, we will see y'all right back here next week. You know where to find us on social media at GoodUpPod, #GoodUpTuesday. If you want to join the VIP section, because we actually are launching a bonus podcast called Love Factually. I'm so excited for Deidre to hear it because Deidre hasn't even
I want to hear. I want to hear. I can't wait.
It's all about rom-coms and romance and all the good things. So make sure you check that out. But you can only access it as a patron. So it's patreon.com/GoodUpPodcast. With that being said, Deidre, tell these grateful/ungrateful bitches bye.
Bye.
Good Up is hosted and produced by Deidre Ritter and Hayaiza Quinones Ivory. Find us on all social media platforms at GoodUpPod. Use #GoodUpTuesday to continue the conversation and get access to exclusive bonus content at patreon.com/GoodUpPodcast.